That's Alison Krauss. Couple of minutes this side of 8 o'clock. Welcome to a Monday, start of week edition of the Mornings with Ed show on the all-new Voice of Laguna. We come to you live across the globe from the world's most beautiful beach community of Laguna Beach. We sit directly across from the iconic Lifeguard Tower on Main Beach. And each and every Monday, we do something called the Artist Corner. The Artist Corner is brought to you by the folks at the Honacar Foundation for Arts and Culture, elevating the art that we experience. And that's what we're about to do right now with this conversation, is elevate the art that we experience. I'm about to introduce you to Jerome Gastaldi. Jerome Gastaldi is the former director of the Modern Museum of Art here in Orange County. He's brought all kinds of great major exhibitions, such as David Hockney, Rufino Tamayo, and Jose Luis Cuevas. We will talk about his career and what he's got going on right now. And I'm hoping that we get a chance to talk about the Finding Light exhibition. Will we talk about that? I welcome into the studio this morning for the Artist Corner, Jerome Gastaldi. Good morning, Jerome. How are you?
Good morning, Ed. Great to be here with you.
You've got a great radio voice right off the bat. I noticed, wow, this guy should be in radio.
I don't know.
Well, thank you for making the trip in today. How are you this morning? Everything good?
Very, very good. Yeah.
All right. You're warm enough? I tried
I'm
to
warm.
keep...
Yeah, it's the weather's kind of chilling a little bit, but yeah, it's great.
Right.
Have a sweater on. I kind of looking at that
You
time of year. I like that.
Yeah, and you got the nice hot cup of coffee. I can see
Yeah.
the steam rising from that,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Ecuador coffee.
There you
It's the
go.
greatest.
Yeah. So, artist your entire life?
Yeah, pretty much. I've been an artist my whole life, and prior to that, I was in this area. I used to be a tennis pro, and it's kind of an interesting.
By the way, do you still play?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I can't, and I used to. I loved surfing. Can't do that either,
Right.
but anymore. My knees and
Right.
my mom never said a bad word, and as I got older, she goes, Rob, getting old shitty. I have to agree with her. No, anyhow.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here, and we're glad most of us will benefit from the fact that you turned to art, because the art you create is great. I found myself captivated, by the booklet you gave me. Tell me how you put this together.
Well, basically, that's a spinoff. It's called Finding Light is the exhibition, and The Art of Creating You is a book that's part of a book that I wrote a number of years ago. It's been used in the Canadian prison system called Art and Reality.
Okay.
Keep an Eye on Your Soul.
Okay.
It's been used throughout the Canadian prison system, and then some prisons here in the United States. And it's a book that people, that get into it, they write and they respond to it and kind of create their own vision of what things are about. And it's to open up people's minds. And then The Art of Creating You is designed for, not just art therapy, but anybody that wants to kind of delve into, a little deeper meaning of life, spiritual sort of things.
Right. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the opening of minds. You said that's an interesting term that you just used.
Yeah, well, I think what it is, we all are dealing with the world. I don't need to tell anybody about that. There's a lot of, things that take place in the world that we agree with or don't agree with or whatever. And I think it's important to kind of have an open mind, look at both sides of things. And I think that book does that. Like you actually, you might notice as you turn the pages, there's QR codes.
Yes.
And there's a piece of art on each page. Yeah. And when some are historic pieces of art, some are things that I've created and other people have created. And then there might be a little poem or just one word or whatever that's connected to that piece. So when you hit the QR code, it plays like a short movie that's basically the essence of what the artwork is about. It's not a documentary, but an expression. And I actually copyrighted the concept that I call bridging. And I have other artists now that are starting to do it, because what it is, we live in the information age. If you don't need to go very far. You just look down the street and everybody's got their face in a cell phone or
Right.
their computer or whatever.
Right.
So it's designed really to open up the opportunity for people to be exposed to the arts other than just looking at a painting on the wall.
Right.
It's designed for people to kind of, you might look at a painting, hit a QR code, and then you get the feeling of what the artist was trying to create. So that's pretty much what it is. It's a new way of looking at art, but it's very simple. But it's easy, and anybody can do it.
Okay, well, one of the reasons I was so fascinated by this, and I want to give an example to the audience right now, the spin-off that he's talking about is called The Art of Creating You, and if I go right to the dead center of it, There is a juxtaposition of a dog and the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
And there, as great as the juxtapositioning of these two works of art are the words that you share with us. More than pets, they are our cherished companions, enriching every moment we share with unconditional love and quiet understanding. PD was my bulldog, a guy who loved his art. He knew the good, the bad, the ugly. He never bit the mailman or peed upon the wall. Could care less about the Mona Lisa. It was the painting of the old Jake the Bull, for he loved him most of all.
Yeah, that was a painting that I painted for a bulldog rescue. And what happened, I had painted that painting, and it was sitting on the wall in my studio. And the dog saw it and starts jumping up and this sort of thing. And so then I wrote this little poem because, PD's no longer with me, but you love these dogs so much. It's like such a big part of their life. Right. And so he's jumping up on the thing, and then the poem plays, and you see the Mona Lisa. And so that's what I call a bridging piece. There's the still Mona Lisa, but then the dog's jumping, looking at a piece of art because he loved that. He loved the visual of the imagery, Right. And never did that with any other thing. But when I put a bulldog up there that I painted, and I don't usually paint, representation things. I can, but I don't do too much of that. My stuff's a little more expressive. But anyhow, so it was real powerful, and kids love this.
Right.
And actually, I think that may be on online at our, on our website. We have a pretty comprehensive website. You can kind of see what goes on down there.
Are you fascinated by the imagination of children?
Absolutely. I'm the book that you have there. I have a children's version of that book. So there's a youth version and an adult version, and basically what it is I have kids in Idaho that basically have interfaced with us, and the whole classroom does murals, and they do the exercises in the book, and now I have somebody, a doctor that lives here in town, is doing doctors across borders in Laos, and we're going to start doing it over there. So I'm really into opening up, this whole concept for people to kind of open up their minds, and I think that's the whole thing. Children, when they start doing this, their imaginations are fantastic. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right. And it takes almost no prompting to get a child to open up their mind and look at something in a different way.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to let them have the freedom. Right. When like a lot of times when I think what happens, kids sometimes they go to school and you have a friend that can draw really well because somebody's taken the time to show them how. But when they're really expressive themselves, they're fantastic. They almost look like a Basquiat painting without even trying. So it's it's really pretty fantastic.
Where do we lose that wonder? Why does that happen, and where does that happen?
Well, I think again, education puts you into a box, sort of thing.
Right.
It takes the free expression out of things. Sometimes it's like you're going to do it like this, and this, and I think it's important to realize that ourselves, we each of us looks at things differently. But it's good to kind of look at maybe how somebody else approaches it, and I don't know. I think it's fascinating, really.
Right. Another work of yours that's here in the book is the very first one that we see when we open this book up. It's called Out of Balance.
Yes.
And the first thing that struck me is that does it deal with mental illness? Is that my correct interpretation of it?
It can. Yeah. That's Vitruvian Man. The drawing there, and of course throughout the book you'll see. Vitruvian Man and might be Mona Lisa or whatever, and then on the opposite side of the page is a print or a drawing of these particular images, and then the person, as you go through this, you're encouraged to draw over. So you're drawing over a Leonardo da Vinci drawing or this sort of thing. So I think one thing, this book has been used. My other book in particular. Keep an Eye on Your Soul has been used in the prison system for over 14 years in Canada. And this book is something where, people, it's much easier. There was a lot of reading in the other book. Right. And actually, the University of British Columbia did a thing called Art and Alchemy, another book produced related to this book on how to use it, because it was used, up there in the women's and the men's prison system. But I think that's an issue that, everybody's a little bit out there, and
right.
It's so it's just basically kind of getting people to realize that you yourself control everything. It's like, it's what it is.
Right.
And I think, of course, we have a big drug issue here in this country and all that. And I think, my thing is, I think when people really start focusing and you look inward at yourself and you look at, the good, bad, and whatever, you start to realize, wow, yeah, and you can change anything that you want. It's just having the determination. Hey, look at things a little bit differently, open your mind, and,
Right.
I think that's what it's all about.
And I think that'll take me right back into I'll dovetail into the Canadian prison rehab programs that are using your art, your books. Has any one of the former prisoners reached out to you, and have any of them taken paths of art because of this?
Well, I think, a lot of people, when they're incarcerated, a lot of people, that's what they do. A lot of them really get into art, and it's fantastic art. And I don't know whether any of you remember, but Chuck Colson. Chuck Colson was an attorney for Richard Nixon, went to jail, and he's the one that started Prison Fellowship, which I was a keynote speaker up in Canada with 130 countries from around the world that came together, and I had a little workshop up there years ago, and I think what happens is it's opening dialogue with people. Right. I mean, I've gone up there into the women's prison in particular up in Canada. And it's unbelievable, really. Like, people they're isolated, and it's a very, it's a tough thing. But I think, I don't really track it all. Although Brooke Anderson, that's a artist in Canada, and she was the one that actually initiated the book going into the prisons, along with Ellie Clitheroe, that was the head of Prison Fellowship. And I think that, the main thing is people, you can't really tell people what to do, but when they start expressing themselves, and then you look at it and you can compare it to how other people are approaching things, I think that's the really important thing. In fact, they used it in Wasco prison here in the United States, in Tehachapi, and it was really interesting because you might notice on one of the pages there's a window, right. And it's like just like imagine a window drawn on the page. And they put butcher paper all around the room, and all these prisoners came in, and they all drew on it and all. And it's, are you looking out the window or looking in the window? And they could draw, and every one of them were looking out the window. And what the correctional officers found, it was really quite interesting because everyone were looking out the window, and then these people that have been incarcerated together never hardly talked, and they were all talking about their brothers and sisters and everything else. So I think art really has a power that people don't really know or quite understand. It's something that's innate. It's in all of us. If you go back, throughout history, you go back to whether it be the Lascaux caves or whatever, people were expressing themselves, and we determine what happened in the past because of the way we interpret the art.
Right.
Whether the pyramids or whatever.
It's a magic of some sort.
It is.
Really is.
Yeah, and everybody has it. Everybody has it. A lot of people go, oh, I can't. Oh, no, yeah, you can. You just haven't done it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things. I do a lot of mural projects. I've done them for, Susan Komen Breast Cancer, all kinds of organizations, and it's fantastic. Sometimes people come and they're very intimidated to get into it, right. And then I've done it with like 450 people in a convention center in Las Vegas, right. And people get in, they start expressing themselves, and pretty soon they drop everything. I always tell everybody, make sure you bring clothes that you don't mind wrecking, and it's pretty unbelievable,
So I want to talk about and specifically the Canadian women's prison and the isolation that you experienced, that they experienced, that you saw, as well as depression's a mental health issue, and isolation, and it's almost this snowball effect.
Correct.
Can great creativity come from that, from the depression, from the isolation?
I believe so, and I think. Well, this is what, I'm kind of an optimist, but I believe that, like, when people really, if you observe your life, all of us, each of us, if you observe your life backwards, okay, and you can kind of go back and go, oh, well, this is kind of where things changed in my life. I don't know, whatever that may be. And then basically realize, it's all about the presence of now, where you are right now. It's like, you and I can go out and, hey, there's a Bank of America, let's go rob it here today, but we know there's going to be consequences, right? Right. So I think, it's kind of like, there's choices in everything in life, and it's like, many are invited, fewer chosen. You have to do the choosing. People think, oh, well, I haven't been chosen. No, that has nothing to do with it. You choose. You choose everything.
Right.
And you know everything. You know every single thing about you because your mind, I have this saying, the mind can't comprehend the feeling within. Only the heart is able to see, and I believe that. It's like, there's a difference, and I think that's really important.
Right. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I couldn't wait for this. I'm telling you. So you gave me something. I quickly want to because I'm going to put it online later and show the audience what it is. You gave me something called an electronic blessing.
Yeah, that's a one of the pieces that I do. It's a bridging piece, and basically you can if you went to I believe it's on there right now. Like if you went to YouTube and hit Villa Concore, VILLA-CONCUORE, which means Villa with heart. That's my studio. I have a large gallery there on the studio. And that piece that is called Electronic Blessing, whether you like it or not, actually came out of an exhibition I had done many years ago. Probably I've been doing these videos with this that I call Bridging for over 30 years, and I was invited to do this exhibition in Canada. It was artists that were using technology that wasn't really a broad, available on a broad level at that particular point in time. And I had 9 television monitors in the form of a cross with a priest giving a blessing, and it was called Electronic Blessing. They had about 100,000 people went through this exhibition. So I'd always wanted to do this like as a billboard on the freeway, so when people are driving by, they're getting blessing. And it's not to push particularly Christianity. It's just like, because if you ever come to my studio, which I'd like you to do, I have like a huge Buddha that's been in monastery from China, and people, I have like grounds there, right. And people really enjoy coming there. Like I think it's quite interesting. So it's like it's about compassion,
right.
And if you do go to the show there, there's a documentary that was shot by the Thomas Merton Center, okay. And they had asked me to paint a painting called Compassion, which I did, and. Anyhow, it's all. I didn't even see this for all these years when this was shot. The young man Elvis that works for me, he found this thing online, and I looked on it, and I never had seen it before. And it had the fellow that funded this for the Thomas Merton Center. It was really interesting. He'd owned what is it? One of the cell phone companies, okay. BlackBerry.
Okay.
And he funded this, and. What happened is he's a philanthropist, and then all of a sudden all these other people like Richard Rohr and all these other people that are, spiritual leaders, Buddhists and everything else. And then here I am in the background painting this painting, and I'm on the ground and because of the way that I paint, I'm moving around. And then I never saw it, and I was like in shock. It actually kind of brought tears to my eyes. I had no idea, because they did do another little documentary, but I had never seen that one, Right. It was something they did, and it was kind of interesting. But so all these people are talking about compassion and what compassion means to them. Right. And there's, people from the Indian cultures up there in Canada, and they call them First Nations people, and a lot of different leaders, and some, I think there's some other celebrities in there too.
How do you deal with someone who appears to have no empathy, to have no compassion?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think everything is not just a perception. It's how how people act or how they respond to things. Don't you think it's kind of, it's like people's actions speak louder than words. And right. You want everybody to see things from your point of view, whether you're right or wrong. Everybody wants,
right.
people to see. But I think that's an interesting thing. I guess if we could answer that, we could change the world, right?
I guess yeah. We'll start on it today. You and I will start on that today.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Do you have a favorite moment in time or a place where you feel the most creative? What brings out your creativity?
Well, I think for me, I'm like, with no preaching, but I feel like, it's a connection to something greater than yourself. Okay. Let's call it that. And right. I think, for me, it's like you might notice these bags under my eyes. No, what happens to me, like, I think things come to us, all the time. And like a lot of times I'll sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and I'm up for a few hours, and I go back to sleep. And like what happens is kind of interesting. if something comes to me that I'm working on or whatever, I write it down. And then sometimes I go, no, I'm not going to write it down. If I remember it in the morning, it was worth writing down. So that's kind of what. But I think that, if you want to call it God or this inner thing that we all have, I think it speaks to us, and I think, that's kind of it. And I think just coming here and talking to you is such really a blessing. It really a lot of times people don't ask questions, so you never, we don't really know everything about somebody, what they've done, and
right.
A lot of people that I know, they don't even know what I do, But
right.
of course, see, my name is Robert Jerome Abbott, and I've taken Jerome Gastaldi, which was my mother's maiden name. I've been doing it for 40 years,
right.
and with my art, and it was kind of a interesting thing when I was young. When I was with the museum, I started using my mother's maiden name because I just wanted to have a separation, so people weren't going, oh, he's using his position to
right.
better see. But like for instance, in this exhibition that I have that's at 7 Degrees, the works are not really. It's not that they're not for sale, but they're large. I mean, I have some of the pieces in that body of work I couldn't even get into the building. They're 40 feet long and 12, 14 feet tall. And so, but anyhow, I think, my interest really is kind of sharing, what it's all about.
Right. I just want to remind our audience that the 7 Degrees Gallery is presenting Finding Light by Jerome Gastaldi. Through the holidays, they're showcasing an extraordinary exhibition by Jerome, and it features paintings and sculptures and films alongside a rare selection of original etchings. I'm curious, and I was curious as I was going through this book and as I was preparing for this morning, who do you hang on your wall? What kind of art is on your walls?
Well, I have a little bit of everything. In fact, I've been a collector. In fact, the etchings that are there, it's a collection of art that came from the Prado. I own the original 80 etchings from Francisco Goya. The collection that I have was shown in 1929, came from the Prado to the World's Fair, and it came through Arm & Hammer, and I ended up with this collection, which was quite interesting because when I was working on this exhibition, I had a woman, Terry Martin. She's with the GRI Getty Research Institute, and she's been writing about this concept of mine for a number of years. And she was the one that basically, as we were working through this, kind of identified the work was very much like Francisco Goya's Capricios. So anyhow, I thought, well, God, it would be so great if I could get a couple of those pieces just to show with this exhibition. And anyhow, this other friend of mine that used to be the director of Bowers Museum and lots of museums on the national level, he basically contacted me not long after this, knew nothing about this, and said, would you be interested in, so anyhow, in this collection, and the man that had owned it, basically, he was 97 years old and wanted to travel on, and so it's part of this exhibition, and I'm actually, yesterday I have a museum in Coos Bay. The director came down and spent the day with me yesterday about kind of starting to select Coos Bay Museum, some of the pieces that are going to go up there, and so we're determining what all is going to, travel up there. But so it's
and the actual determination of which piece goes and which piece stays is arbitrary or pick and choose, or
no. What it is, there's size limitations. Like the Coos Bay Museum has a number of galleries on the ground floor and then up above, and like there's only there's, I'm going to say, maybe 1,800 square feet upstairs, so I can't really move everything. And there's always the transportation is this issue, and although they have people that move that for them and do the installations, but I had a show there a number of years ago at Soka, and they have 10,000 square feet. This is way larger. I mean, it's like it's kind of complicated. That's one reason why I have the live feed from the gallery. Like if you go to 7 Degrees, you'll see a live feeds from the gallery that I have in my studio. I have a large studio and grounds there in North San Diego where my studio is, and so people can go live to the facility. In fact, if you go to Villa Concore and hit Gallery Live, you'll see some of these things. And we're actually doing, like at Christmas time here, that little card that says Electronic Blessing. The Electronic Blessing is live in the gallery there, and I haven't had a chance to put up the tree, but we're going to put up a little Christmas tree with my grandson that's coming from England. We're going to decorate it in there. So,
Very cool.
it's changing all the time, and that's pretty much it.
Very cool. Let's talk about the workshops and the events that take place from on Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon.
Yeah, what it is. Like I'm offering like a free workshop. I've done them, a lot of them before. They've been at Barnes and Noble. In fact, the Festival of Arts used to do it here with me, and artists, or anybody interested in packaging and presenting their works. I've done it for jewelers and different people that are artists or artisans to take their work to marketplace. I like to help them to be able to do that, and I know quite a bit about it. I have people that are showing in Art Basel right now. And I've worked with lots of artists on different levels, musicians. George Clinton, for one, he's showing now at Art Basel, and I was one of the ones that instrumental in getting him to paint, and so it's interesting.
Creativity out of this world from George Clinton.
Completely.
Just on every level, creative.
Yeah. And George is a guy that it's. He's really interesting. Right. He's really talented and, like you say, creative. Like, I when I first met him, I went to Universal Studios with him, and I walk in on the stage while he's coming out of the mothership, and it's like crazy. I had no idea what I was getting into, but anyhow, and we've kept in contact. And another artist, a friend of his, Overton Lloyd, that used to send him when he was in high school. Overton would send him like little drawings and postcards, and then George used some of them on album covers and stuff. And Overton's real involved with him now, with his music. But
in growing up a fan of Parliament and Funkadelic, and taking home their albums and reading the album liners and the notes and the drawings on them, I found that just hours of fascination for me. Hours of fascination.
George is a character, and when he was married to Stephanie, they came and stayed with me probably about 4 times here in Laguna,
right?
And he's been down to my studio there in Fallbrook. But I really like creative people, and I really love collaboration with people. I mean, I'm real into that. In fact, this last week, of course, living here on the coast, a lot of people know from surfing, which I loved when I was a kid. I wish that's the one thing I probably missed more than anything. But I'm very close with Corky Carroll. Corky Carroll was the #1 surfer in the world during my time, and he comes down and paints. He's a painter and artist down in. He lives in Zihuatanejo, and he and his wife come up and stay with me, and some other people that are into the surf type art, and I just like interfacing with these people, and I have a thing I do on Tuesday. It's kind of open studio, and I have a lot of people that come that are maybe more traditional artists, and they want to kind of break out and try to do a few other things, and I'm working with some children that are into autistic children. In fact, one of the young men that I'm working with, Joel Anderson, he's having a show at the Oceanside Museum, and I'm kind of working with him, helping him put his installation together there, and he's been kind of coming here for about a year with me down there, and I'm real into that. That's going back into mental health. I think that's one thing that I think is really important, and I think art can help people to kind of ground themselves and get a perspective on what the possibilities are beyond just being trapped in your own world.
I've had conversation with hundreds of artists, and I right now at this moment I'm thinking to myself, this guy just gives. You're just such a giver, and that's thank you for giving back.
Well, I think we all try or want to try, but anyhow, artists are way more than what they think. People really, you have the ability to create, and not only create but share. Right. I think that's the whole thing, and it's powerful.
And I, by the way, when you said Zihuatanejo, I heard you in the Morgan Freeman voice from from the movie Shawshank Redemption. Zihuatanejo.
Ladies and gentlemen, no.
We've been talking this morning with Jerome Gastaldi. 7 Degrees Gallery through the holidays is presenting Finding Light. These Finding Light features his paintings, his sculptures, and films, as well as introducing Bridging, Art Meets Media. How can people find you? How can they look at your art? How can we find you?
Yeah, well, one way, if you want to see things, you could go to villaconcore.com. You can see some of the things there, and And then if you want, I guess you could go on Facebook. I post a lot of stuff there under Robert Abbott, a.k.a. Jerome Gastaldi, either one of those. But Robert Abbott has a lot of stuff on there. And anyhow, I just like putting people together. I think that's really important. And not always people that necessarily agree with you. I really think it's very important to be open to everybody's perspective. I think that's, the whole thing in life. Because a lot of times I have the saying, it's like enlightenment is when you wake up to discover who you think you aren't. And I think that's really true. It's it's really like we think, oh yeah, well I'm not this. Well, no, yeah, you are. So I think, like your only limitations, your expectations. It's really true. And if you start digging a little deeper into things, you find the truth. And you know what they say about that.
Yeah. It'll set you free sometimes.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Will you please come back at some point?
Absolutely. This was great.
All right.
By the way, you're really great. You really are.
I loved having you here. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.
Jerome Gastaldi, if you're looking for information on Finding Light at 7 Degrees Gallery, give me a buzz here. It's the Artist Corner, brought to you by the folks at the Honacar Foundation for Arts and Culture, elevating the art that we experience.
The best radio in Laguna. Voice of Laguna. Download our app, listen online at voiceoflaguna.com.
So I ran faster, but it caught me here. Yes, my